for a while, I wanted to wear a leather coat, because I thought that'd really be great, but I felt guilty about someone having to go out and kill an animal, just so I could wear a leather coat. And I made a compromise for a while. I was wearing a live cow.
That
holds up. No,
I like it. Does hold up. That was Steve Martin performing stand-up 50 years ago. Look at you, Steve. Since then, he starred in dozens of projects, from Father of the Bride, love that, to Only Murders in the Building, love that too. Now he's releasing an audiobook with his friend of more than 30 years. That's New Yorker writer Adam Gopnik. It's called, I love this title, So Many Steves. It features their conversations about the many Steves, like Steve the actor, Steve the banjo player, Steve the comedian, Steve the collector. It's great. Here they are talking about when Steve left stand-up.
The strangest thing for me was in my latter days of stand-up, it was the least creative I have ever been.
At the same time, you were playing stadiums.
Yeah, right. To come up with something new and try to work it in, there was no vehicle for it, to get it in, to try a little thing. When you're in a club, you could try something and move on and keep going and change the subject. But there, every word was amplified on a mic. It had to be solid, had to be heard, had to be delivered.
You were really at the end there doing rock concerts.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. If I had understood that, I would have been better off, because I kept thinking, I'm doing a comedy show. I want them to laugh, not cheer.
Only on CBS Mornings, Steve Martin and Adam Gopnik join us here in the studio. Welcome to you both.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, first of all.
Well, that was one of my favorite episodes, because here you are with the audience going, yay, Steve Martin. And you're sitting there thinking, this is not fulfilling to me because I know I'm not as creative as I can be. I was surprised to hear you say that.
Well, I had worked on an act for essentially 18 years.
Yeah.
And, when you get to that point and you've got it together and it's working, you don't really want to mess with it. And yet your creative mind wants to move on to something else. And plus, there's the tired factor.
There's that tired. Too. Did that surprise you, Adam, when he said that?
I sort of knew it only because I knew everything else that Steve had done after that, right? And obviously there had been some kind of impulsion in him, as there is in every creative person, not to be satiated by repetition.
Yeah. But what was fascinating too, Steve, is that you said you actually had to learn to be friendly, that you were an introverted person, that Tommy Smothers once said this about you. Tommy Smothers said it, I didn't. Talking to Steve Martin is like sitting in a room alone.
Yes,
Ouch.
well, that's true. I was, and it still is, by the way.
More than ever.
But did you have to...
Well, early on, I was kind of isolated, withdrawn, and shy. And then when I started working with Carl Reiner as a movie director, I could observe him because he was outgoing in exactly the right way.
Yeah.
And he'd say that someone says, can you blah blah do this? And he'd go, you just watch me. He'll say something like that, a little funny, and it was just a way to interact with the world.
That was my biggest takeaway, actually, because when Steve told me that, the secret was be like Carl Reiner. I said, I'm going to be like Carl Reiner as well. And so we should all be like Carl Reiner.
Yes.
When it comes to doing other things, though, you move from comedy into acting, and you're thinking at the time, this is going to be easy. I've done sketch, I've done stage work.
Well, I did. I had been on stage, I've done sketches on television, I've written sketches, so I thought, well, acting is just, And then the first day on the set, I had to go, I had to sit down and I go, so do I put the cup, when do I put the cup down? Let's see, and...
the script said put down the cup, and you're like, do I sit first, do I stand first?
Yeah, so there's eventually, after years, you learn just to put it down like a normal person.
And then it works. It works in particular when you write the scripts. You have this great line about how if you want to make 5 great movies, you've got to make 40 movies.
Well... A movie is a behemoth, and you can have the best director, the best actors, the best script, and everything, and somehow it doesn't work, and also can work. You just don't know, and it's such an opera that you can't predict if it's really going to be good.
And is that what stopped you from being in these feature films over the last handful of years?
No. No. I mean, it is a pressure. Like, just you want it to work, and there's so much pressure on it to financially, and the crew and the cast and the studio. but it's always a relief to come here and just have fun.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and
We
do
like-
something like with Adam where we're just talking and then we later edit it.
Well, that's what I think is so interesting about the two of you. You've been friends for over 30 years. Adam, you say in the podcast, in the audiobook, that you all bonded over his passion for art, which you call his prime passion.
Yeah, we met at an art occasion. I had curated a show at the Museum of Modern Art, actually, and Steve and I met and we started talking about it. And Steve's passion for art was, I think, in a certain way, a kind of salvation. In other words, it was something that...
Yes, it's something very private.
Yeah.
I could enjoy it myself. It's not public.
Yeah.
But I would read, Adam, you don't write about art so much anymore, but when he was writing about art, I always felt, oh, I'm smarter now. I'm smarter now. And it wasn't difficult. It wasn't art speak. It was graspable, what he was talking about.
So
Made it
how did
fun.
that friendship lead to this? Because number one, I have to say the podcast is so well done. You're riding your bike from the east side to the west side,
right.
where Steve lives, and you two just sit and talk.
But Gayle, we've agreed to call it an audio book.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh, boy.
An
Sorry,
autobiography.
Trouble now.
Yes,
Thank you, Tony.
I hope we're not
stand
live.
corrected.
It just was fun. Steve and I have been having conversations in different countries for a long time, and I would truly ride my bike over, and we would start talking, and we discovered what our subjects were as we were talking about them. And one of the things we talked about was writing, because Steve has written novels. That's what I do. And writing is just the opposite of movie making because nobody cares and nobody invests in it at all. So you have
And
the
it's
freedom.
free.
And
It doesn't cost $17 million.
Steve, you talked about your fascination with magic.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
and you can see in your early stand-up some of the influence of magicians that may have been part of your life growing up. What about magic kind of helped create and mold you?
Well, there's a great thing about when you're a kid and you want to be in show business and magic. You can go buy a trick. You buy a trick, you read the instructions, and it even gives you patter. Says, hi, I just, came back from Egypt and got this magic thing. So you're already in show business and you just can do your tricks, get used to performing. And so it's and it's fun.
Yeah.
The showmanship of it. Adam, what's so interesting about Steve, it seems to me, is that most people, that feeling of not being good at acting on day one is a frightening feeling and you don't go back to it. But you, so many times in your career, have sought out that new thing and then ascended it. Do you know anyone like that?
I think it's one of the things that makes Steve.
The answer is no.
I'm sorry. No, nobody other than Steve.
Everybody has that.
Yeah, but no, I do think it's true that interesting people tend to want to do the next thing. Magicians have this beautiful term, the real work, and they mean people who have got great technical virtuosity, but who also are idiosyncratically themselves, and that's very much
what I like is that there are so many Steves, and they're all knockout, and they're all fantastic, and you both captured it very well. This is one of your projects, and you're also working on The Mastery.
I have a book out called The Real Work on the Mystery of Mastery, which is kind of transitive with everything we talk about.
And by the way, I judge audiobooks by how many calories you can lose. So this is a 400, 500 calorie treadmill or walking.
Thank you for that, Steve Martin. Thank you. You can download the So Many Steves, I love that title, audiobook right now. After you're done watching CBS Mornings.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We'll be right back.